I'm going to get started. My name's Dr. Jean Wagner. I am with A to Z Pediatrics in Caseyville, Illinois, and we also have a location in Bethalto. As I've said before, I work with two awesome doctors, Dr. Lori Eberhardt and Dr. Mark McGranahan. And then between the three of us, we also have four totally amazing nurse practitioners, Joe, and Melissa, and Andrea, and Claire, who are with us to help see our patients and make sure everybody gets seen in a timely fashion. We started giving COVID vaccines yesterday, and to date, we have given 54 vaccines, and I am so beyond excited about that and we've had hundreds and hundreds of phone calls. So I am super, super proud of all of our patients for being so interested in learning about the vaccine and being open-minded and sort of working with us and being open to kind of listening to our recommendations. And so we have been really, really impressed with the response by our patient population because they have been amazing. So, okay, so that being said, I think we will get started. And I'm gonna do a quick overview of kind of the science behind COVID vaccines, how we got to this point, what our recommendations are, and then we'll go through any questions that you guys might have, okay? And I do have notes on this one because like I was saying early before everybody got on here, this is one I don't have memorized because this is all new information for me in the last year, so I don't have my little spiels. So, okay. So to start with, the COVID vaccine that is currently available for kids is going to be the Pfizer vaccine only. There are two other brands, which I think most people know. There's the Moderna and then the Johnson & Johnson. At the moment, only the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines are being studied in kids. The Johnson & Johnson or Janssen vaccine is not currently being studied in kids as far as I know. The Pfizer vaccine is the only one right now that is approved down to age 12. The Moderna vaccine, I think, is down to 18. So in our office, we will only be giving the Pfizer vaccine. That's the only brand that we have access to, and that's the brand that we all received. I don't know that one is any better than the other, but that's what we're going to have in our office for those of you that want to know. And so essentially, when you're talking about how vaccines work, what does a vaccine do? In general, what vaccines do is they trick our bodies into thinking that we got a disease that we didn't actually get, so that it's a much safer way to stimulate our immune system. If you get, for example, chickenpox or COVID, then your body makes a specific antibody response, but it also makes a very huge, broad response called the immune response, which sometimes causes more problems than it's worth. And that is definitely the case when it comes to COVID. Many of the problems with the COVID infection are not from the infection itself, but from the overwhelming immune response that your body is making inappropriately for the level of infection that you have. And so that is one of the reasons why the vaccine is so much better than getting the disease, because when we give the vaccine, we are only giving one teeny tiny little part of the COVID virus to trick your body into thinking you got it without all the whole side problems that you get from COVID. And so the way this vaccine in particular works is that it uses the COVID virus's spike proteins. So if any of you have watched any news or read any articles or anything about COVID, you are probably familiar with the little ball with all the little spiky things coming off of it. Those spikes are proteins, and they are part of what allows the virus to latch onto our nasal cells and respiratory cells, and they are what basically tells our body that we've been infected with coronavirus. Actually, the name corona is Latin for crown, and that is why all coronaviruses have the little spike proteins coming out around, because it looks like a crown. So with the COVID vaccine, they are essentially taking and either giving actual spike proteins to you in a vial, or they are making your own cells make the tiny spike proteins. And then when that gets into our body looks at it and says, oh my gosh, that's a foreign substance. You should not be here. And they start making antibodies very specifically just to the spike protein. All of the other things that are in a vaccine are not something that can stimulate your immune system. They are what's called an inert substance. The way I explain it is this. when it comes to vaccines, you've got two things. You've got the vehicle and you have the engine. The vehicle is what the vaccine rides in, and that stays the same for almost all vaccines. And then you've got the engine, and the engine is something that can be changed regularly. And so in this particular case, we're going to use the COVID spike proteins as the engine, and that is what's going to stimulate your immune system. Okay, hopefully I am making sense to everybody. And so with other vaccines, it might be other things, right? So if you're talking about the pneumococcal vaccine, which we give to babies to prevent meningitis, you're actually giving a small piece of the outer wall of the bacteria that tricks your body into thinking that you got it when you didn't, and then you make antibodies to it. Your body then takes those brand new antibodies and then it stores them. Most of the antibodies will die off in the first couple of days, and then your body will keep what's called memory cells or memory antibodies inside your immune system, so that if and when you become infected with COVID, then your body will be like, oh, I remember these guys. Yeah, no, they're not coming in. And then their body will reproduce and copy a whole bunch of those antibodies and go and fight the infection and get it out of your body before you often even know you were infected. And that's pretty much how all vaccines work, okay? So when we're talking specifically about this COVID vaccine, so the Pfizer one in particular, they are using a newer technology that uses RNA. RNA is similar to DNA, except there's some minor differences, okay? But it is still the building blocks of all life, all life. And so when they make this vaccine, for the Pfizer version, they actually have the code for the spike protein that is injected into your arm. And then just in that little area, those cells are going to make the spike proteins, send them out into your bloodstream, tell your body to make the antibodies, and then the same process occurs. In no way is it physically possible for this to change your DNA. I want to make that very clear. It is not possible for RNA to come into your body and change your DNA. DNA is tucked away very tightly inside the nucleus of your cell, which is like the brain of your cell. You cannot get in there. And the RNA has no way in which to get in there. It's the opposite. So your nucleus is going to send messages out into the cell to stimulate the RNA. The RNA is responsible for making proteins. DNA is our code. Okay, so you can't change our code, our innate human code, by putting RNA into a body. Okay, after the RNA has done its job, our body will again destroy it because it is not necessary anymore. It will eat it up, metabolize it, and it's gone. Okay, so once you have gotten the vaccine, hold on, let me back up just 1 second, because I think there's one other really important point that we should probably cover when it comes to these particular vaccines. In that these mRNA or these RNA vaccines are while they seem very new to us, and even myself, they seemed relatively new to me, these are not a new technology. These were not invented last March when the COVID virus became apparent that we were going to have some pretty serious problems. They didn't just figure this out last March. It wasn't this very short-term process to bring this vaccine to the table. In actuality, these vaccines have been on the shelf for a long time, and they've been being studied by people way smarter than me for quite some time, and have been used in humans in study situations, not in an actual production sort of situation. So not to fight an actual disease, but to study it for the viruses that are similar to coronavirus or to COVID virus. In particular, if you are old enough to remember the SARS, S-A-R-S outbreak in China and Asia, that is also a type of coronavirus, and it was hugely devastating, and really they expected that was going to come here, and it didn't. Then a few years later, we have MERS, M-E-R-S, similar type thing. So they have been studying this vaccine against those types of viruses for a long time. So they didn't just kind of come up with it it was ready to go in the case of an emergency. So that is how they were able to bring this vaccine out so quickly. But that is a little scary, right? When you think about a vaccine coming out so fast, how could they possibly know that nothing bad was going to happen down the line? And that's, like I said, that's because it's actually been around for a while, but it hasn't been used in mass vaccination situations because it hasn't been needed until now. Okay. So hopefully I've kind of answered your questions about like how we got to this point with the vaccine. The next thing that we need to talk about is how do we know whether or not this vaccine is really safe? Like how do we even know? They have studied this vaccine in tens of thousands of people. These were not small studies. They were gigantic studies. Tens of thousands of people who volunteered to do this, and then tens of thousands of children. There were so many parents who volunteered their kids for this vaccine trial that they had to close it down because they couldn't accept any more kids because there were so many, which is an amazing problem to have. It's been studied in tons of kids. The second reason why we know that this is safe is because in our decades and decades and decades of dealing with vaccines, we know that all the problems that are going to happen from a vaccine are going to happen in the first 6 weeks or so after a vaccine. There have been not a single vaccine in the history of vaccines that have caused a problem 5, 10, or 15 or 20 years down the road. And it's just not the way that vaccines work, in that they don't affect a change in something like that could cause problems that much further down the road. And so because we know that this is true with every other vaccine in existence, it is also true with this particular vaccine as well. And if you're going to see problems with this vaccine, whether that's an allergic reaction, whether that's being sick for a week with fever and body aches and all that kind of stuff, or whether it's a more serious secondary problem, which we will talk about, it is going to happen in the first 6 weeks. So there's not going to be surprises 5 to 10 years down the road with this vaccine or any vaccine. However, with the COVID virus, they are expecting surprises, and we are already seeing surprises in that at least I know in our practice, we've already had probably half a dozen kids that I have had to send to cardiology to have their hearts checked after they've been infected with the COVID virus, because we know that it is affecting kids' hearts in permanent ways down the road. We know this for sure. Whereas there is no known problem with the COVID vaccine down the road. And so in my opinion, and I think in all the experts' opinions, is that the known with the vaccine, that it isn't going to cause long-term problems down the road, and it is in fact going to protect us and your child from death from the long-term effects of COVID. And we know this, versus getting the virus naturally and getting your short-term benefit of being immune to it for a short time, and then taking that chance that 3 years down the road or 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road that you are going to have some problem with your heart valve or your coronary arteries or your lungs, because we're definitely seeing that happen. Sorry, I got to move a text out of the way. So we're definitely seeing that happen for sure. Okay. And so I would take the vaccine knowing that it isn't going to kill me versus COVID, which potentially might kill me or cause damage down the line. So that's kind of why we know it's safe, partly because of the way that it works and partly because the studies are showing that there are no problems with it. So once they get the vaccine, how effective is it? It's like, how sure are we that your kid or you or me, or we're not going to get sick? So right now, what they're saying is that it is nearly 100% effective in preventing death from COVID virus. That's really all we're looking for. If we can take the COVID virus and make it as serious as the common cold, then yeah, boom, met our goals. That's perfect, because that's exactly what we want it to look like. Just like the flu vaccine isn't designed to keep you from getting influenza. Nothing can keep you from getting influenza short of living in a bubble. but it will keep you from dying from influenza, and your child from dying from influenza, which is one of the things, if you're a patient of mine, you've heard me say a million times. I want you to take this vaccine, not because I'm going to keep you from getting flu or COVID, but because I'm going to keep your child from dying from it. And that's my goal. And that as long as we can meet that goal, then I think that's where we want to be. And that's, I think, where we want to be with the whole population, because the issue wasn't that we were all getting infected with COVID. It's that a certain percentage of us, a large percentage of the population, died from it, including children. So it is very effective. It is highly effective. It's so effective that, as you guys all know, they took the mask mandate away, and they're telling us we don't have to wear them anymore because they're so sure that those of us that have been vaccinated can't get it, can't spread it. Oh my God, that's my dog. Are you, this is highly embarrassing. Excuse me. I'm back. Sorry. God, seriously, I should just start doing these at the office. Okay, so it's highly effective. It has really no concerns in the long term. So what are the short-term side effects? What can you expect? I mean, I think most of us have heard this on the news, right? The first one that you get, probably nothing. Your arm is definitely going to be sore. They're always sore with vaccines. That's just what you get. Maybe a little fussy, maybe a little tired, maybe a little headache, maybe fever, maybe nothing. It's the second one where you get sick. And that is because your immune system is now activated against this protein. And now it's really going to rev up its anti-COVID antibodies. And generally, like I said before, it's your immune system's reaction to a cold, to chickenpox, to the COVID virus that makes you feel sick. Generally, it's not the virus itself. So after the second one, most people are experiencing some combination of fevers and chills and body aches, fatigue and headaches, maybe some redness around the site, sore arm, swollen arm. Those are pretty minor, and they generally are only lasting 12 to 48 hours, and then everybody's pretty much back to their normal selves. With any vaccine, there is always a very slight chance that you could have a very serious allergic reaction to it, which is why you have to wait 15 minutes after you get the vaccine for somebody to observe you. And that way you're near medical care. And if you need to, we can get you some Benadryl, we can get you an EpiPen, we can get you a breathing treatment, we can do whatever we need to do to get you through that, okay? Those are pretty rare. I think we've had one kid who I thought maybe was gonna get a little wonky with it in the 54 kids we've done so far. That's it. Everybody else has done spectacularly. And then more serious side effects are extraordinarily rare. But they are about at the same level as every other vaccine. Okay. And that's for like sort of that very rare, but serious neurologic abnormality called Guillain-Barre Syndrome. That's French. It's like Guillian -Barre, Guillain-Barre Syndrome. And it is a form of neurologic paralysis that is temporary and it goes away, but it's horrific. I mean, nobody wants to have to go through it, right? However, it is actually more common to get Guillain-Barre syndrome from an actual viral infection than it is from a vaccine for the same infection. So the only time I ever saw it in residency was after chickenpox infections, after influenza infections, and then I saw it once after ibuprofen. So it can happen for a lot of reasons. It is not just unique to vaccines, but it is a known entity and it does happen, but it is very, very, very rare. And so it's honestly not something I generally even mention, but I'm trying to be as transparent as I can for you guys so that you have all the information that you need. Okay. Okay. So now that we have determined that we are all happy with this and everyone's just super excited and it's very safe and we're not going to have any problems from it, who should get it? Who should get this vaccine? If you're going to ask my opinion, I will say everybody. Every single person needs to get this vaccine so that we can protect everyone else who can't get it, because babies will never be able to get this vaccine. This is not a vaccine that we're going to give to our 2, 4, and 6 month olds. If we're lucky, we're going to get it down to 6 months like influenza, but that's going to be a bit, okay? So we need to protect our children. We need to protect our immune compromised. We need to protect our elderly who can't get it for whatever reason. We need to protect our kids who don't have access to healthcare. We have to protect other people. This is so vitally important. So who should get it? Everyone who can. There are literally no serious reasons to not get this vaccine. Unless you have been specifically told by your doctor that you can't have it, you can. Even my kids, I have kids who have immune deficiencies. I have patients who have immune deficiencies, and their immunologist and I have agreed that while they may not make a full antibody panel to this vaccine, I would rather them get 10% protection than 0 protection. And so that's how serious that they're taking it, that even my immune compromised patients are getting it. Should you get it when you're pregnant? Yes. Yes, 127%. Yes, you should get it when you're pregnant. The American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology says you should get it. The pediatricians who are protecting those babies inside those moms say, get it. Why there are individual doctors out there in our community telling moms not to do this, I will never understand, because there is absolutely no reason not to. As a matter of fact, if you are pregnant and you get this vaccine, your baby is going to come out immune. What a great thing to happen. Like your baby, you don't even have to worry about her for the first 6 weeks. So definitely, if your OB has determined you're healthy enough to receive it during that pregnancy, get it. Should you get it when you're breastfeeding? Yes, even better, yes, because then you're going to make antibodies that you're going to feed to your baby, and your baby is going to be protected for as long as you are breastfeeding. And so, yes, pregnancy. Yes, during breastfeeding. Yes. Jess, definitely during breastfeeding. You should definitely get it, Jessica, for sure, 100%. And thanks for watching. Hi. And Jessica used to work for us a long time ago before she moved away. So really, unless your personal physician has said there's some physical or medical reason why you yourself cannot receive it, everyone can receive this vaccine. Okay, so that's hopefully not too much of my soapbox about who's going to get the vaccine. Here is the big question. There's 2 of them that I have seen go around on the internets, and the American Academy of Pediatrics is actually addressing them, which is unusual for them to be this forward. They're usually a little bit vague and happy, and we're gonna parade around it and make everybody feel good. But this time, the American Academy of Pediatrics is very clear. Number 1, this vaccine does not affect fertility. Period. Okay, it is not possible for this vaccine to affect fertility in the way that it is working. That mRNA that's going in your arm is never going to make it to your ovaries. It's never going to get that far. It only goes right here. These are the only cells that are going to be affected by the RNA to make that spike protein. And then that's going in your bloodstream, and then your body's going to eat it, and it's going to be gone. Cannot affect fertility. So there's absolutely no reason that if you are not pregnant and you are trying to get pregnant, that you should not get the vaccine. It will not affect fertility. And there are absolutely no studies that show that it can, and there are no studies that show that any other vaccine can affect fertility. That's just not how they work. Second thing, did this vaccine use fetal cells? No, it did not. Even the Pope has said, get your vaccine, to all of you Catholics, and even the religious leaders of the world have said, get your vaccine, because it did not use fetal cells. Now, where did that come from? Back in the 60s, there was a fetal line of cells that was used to make other cells. And then that made more cells. And then that line made more cells. And then so on and so on and so on and so on and so on to almost infinity. That cell line has turned over thousands and thousands and thousands of generations, and there is no evidence that it was an aborted fetus. None. There is no evidence that that original cell line came from an aborted fetus. It very likely came from a miscarriage that was then donated to science, okay? So there's absolutely no concern for ethical reasons to be concerned that you are somehow encouraging abortion or you're encouraging any of that stuff by using this vaccine. It is quite, in fact, the opposite. We are, and I'm going to wax a little philosophical here because this is my show. So we are preserving life. We are saving lives. We are trying to preserve our way of life. And it isn't just about not getting COVID. People are dying because we can't get kids in for healthcare. Kids are killing themselves because they've been so isolated for the last year. 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds committing suicide because they're so isolated and depressed and anxious about what has happened in the last year. The only way to end that is for all of us to get vaccinated so we can get back to our lives. Okay, sorry, that was my little, my 1 more minute. Sorry, I'm trying not to be too like I am. Okay, so, oh gosh, what else? I think those are the big, I think that's the big stuff. So I'm going to open it up to questions. I'm going to let you guys throw them at me. Right now, like I said, we are scheduling. So, oh, got a question already. Woo! Okay, with the new CDC no mask mandate for vaccinated folks, should we still advocate for people to wear masks around our kids that can't get vaccinated yet? You should. So, okay, I'm going to try to take this example and explain it. So let's say you're within your family unit, right? Mom, dad, 2 kids. And the 2 children are too young to be vaccinated. But grandma and grandpa, are vaccinated. Great. Everybody come on over. But Aunt Susie is undergoing chemotherapy for breast cancer. And so she cannot be vaccinated during this time. Should Aunt Susie wear a mask? Yes. 100% she needs to wear her mask because, making sure I'm answering the question right, because those kids can still get and transmit COVID. As a matter of fact, the only people that we've seen who are COVID positive in the last month are children. We've had, even this week, I've had 2 more kids come up positive for COVID because the adults are vaccinated. I mean, many of them are vaccinated. Okay, so then next question is, when do we foresee the younger kids being able to get vaccinated? They haven't said, but the studies are ongoing. And to me, I think based on the fact that how quickly it went from adults are good, and then we had this span of space between adults down to 18, and then it took this much time to get down to 16, and then it took this much time to get down to 12. I'm hoping it's going to take this much time to get down to 6 or 2 or 6 months. But they are definitely doing studies right now and have been for about 3 to 4 months. So I think it should just be a matter of time. And God, I really am hoping that's going to be by the end of the year. I'm really hoping. Okay, should we plan on the second vaccine making the kids feel worse than the first? Yeah, I would. I would plan on, a 24-hour period of some fevers, body aches, fatigue, headaches, have some Tylenol or ibuprofen on hand, and just plan on that you may not want to plan their birthday party the next day or have a big, baseball tournament the next day. I may have missed this, but how long are these vaccines effective? Ooh, Elizabeth, that is a really good question, and I wish I knew the answer to that. They don't know. I think they're hoping 6 to 12 months. I hope it's more than 6 months because I'm almost 6 months past mine. And I'm not going to lie, the little leftover dribbles that are left in the vial after you guys are done with your vaccines for the last 2 days, it's been really tempting for me not to just take a little bit of it and just sneak it in my arm. But that would be bad. That would be a bad choice. I'm not going to do it. But I've thought about it. So I think we're hoping for 12 months. I think that's the hope. Right now, they're not, the people that got it that are 6 months out, we're not seeing any waning of immunity. So that's looking good. But I think we could probably count on for sure a year. I would say probably once a year is reasonable, but nobody knows yet for sure. So I don't have a good answer for you. If my son has allergies to penicillins and vancomycin, should he get it? Yes, that's a great question, Christine. The only difference, if kids have a lot of allergies, whether it's drugs or food, the recommendation is that instead of waiting 15 minutes after the vaccine, you wait 30. And then we are, like I said, we are right there. And if you're getting it at a Walgreens or whatever, then you have to stay either the 15 or the 30 to monitor for side effects. Okay. Aaron is asking, are vaccinated people who still get mild COVID at risk of the same long-term effects that you mentioned? I don't think they know. But I think based on the way other vaccines behave, the answer is probably not. So in other words, I'm going to use my chickenpox example. That if you get chickenpox, we all know that down the road, many of us will get shingles. And that is a known long-term effect of getting infected naturally with the chickenpox. When you are vaccinated for the chickenpox, you don't get shingles. So my children, all of our children will probably never see shingles. If you get chickenpox vaccine, and then you somehow are unlucky enough to get a very mild case of chickenpox, I think the statistics are that it is a much lower chance that you will have shingles down the road. So based on kind of that sort of science, I think the thought is that your risk will be incredibly low to probably almost zero of having long-term effects of COVID if you don't have that big fired up immune response to the COVID infection that is what causes all the problems. Okay. Should vaccinated kids still wear masks? No. That is one of the best parts about being vaccinated is no masks. Because not only are you not going to get it, it turns out you can't spread it. And if you do, it's so minimal. It's so very minimal. So that the recommendation now is that the vaccinated don't need to wear masks. Now that has to be after your second shot, right? So it's 2 weeks after your second shot, you're considered fully vaccinated. And I probably should have said that at the beginning, but 2 weeks after your second shot, you are fully vaccinated. And then you can go about and be a normal human again for a while. So it's very enjoyable. If you haven't had your vaccine yet, I'm going to tell you, it was probably one of the most emotional things I've experienced in a long time. And also one of the most freeing things I've experienced in a long time. It definitely felt really good to hug my friends again, and it felt really good to hug my dad. And I hadn't hugged my dad in almost a year. And so it was super emotional for me when we got it. What else? I can't think of anything else. And it looks like we're not getting quite as many questions anymore, which is great because that means that you guys know everything and you don't even need me anymore. So that means I did my job. So definitely check out Dr. McGranahan's podcast. He and I practice very similarly, but often we have a little bit of a different spin on things. So it might be nice to kind of hear his take on the COVID vaccine, and his podcast is available on our website. This video, of course, will be available on Facebook. And then you guys can check out my YouTube channel that I started, where all these videos will be condensed and put up. And you can view all my past videos on YouTube. Carrie, vaccinated people cannot spread it? That is correct. That is why they are lifting the mask mandates, because they are seeing signs that if you are vaccinated and you get a mild infection from COVID, it is very unlikely that you can spread it, and you won't be nearly as effective at spreading it as you would if you're just infected without the vaccine. So yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah, it's great. How many vaccination appointments are you offering each day? About 23 or 24 at this time, because our staffing is so low. Much like you've probably seen when you go to restaurants or other places, big signs everywhere, we are hiring, we are hiring, we are hiring. So if you know anybody who wants a job, send them our way because we need staff. So yeah, about 23 or 24 a day. Okay, with the removal of the mask mandate, should we keep our kids more protected in the public while we are waiting for our shot? Yes. If you are going out in public and your children are not vaccinated, they should still be wearing masks. Anybody who is not vaccinated needs to continue to wear masks when you're out in public. And so the problem right now is by lifting the mask mandate, and they're saying that only people who are unvaccinated have to wear masks in public. Okay, well, how do you know? Because I promise you, no one's going to tell the truth. So all these anti-mask people have been just waiting to rip their masks off. And you know they're not going to get vaccinated. So yes, if you are not vaccinated, you must still wear a mask in public, and that includes children. So I would hesitate to allow my unvaccinated children to hang out. My unvaccinated children, which they aren't, my kids are vaccinated, but if my children were unvaccinated, I definitely would not allow them to be hanging out with other kids right now who are also unvaccinated, because we are seeing a lot of COVID. Not a lot. We're seeing a decent amount. It's enough that I don't want to ruin my vacation over it. And that's what you're going to be looking at now. I mean, I just had a kid last week who was COVID positive, and they're going to have to cancel their trip because he's out for 10 days. And now his sister's going to have to quarantine as well. So it's not just dangerous, it's inconvenient, you know, to have to cancel vacations. So yeah, mask up unless you're vaccinated. That is the recommendation. What else? Thank you for all the info. Well, you're welcome. Absolutely. It is my pleasure to do these videos. I actually find them very enjoyable, and it's a lot easier for me to talk this way. So I definitely appreciate everybody coming on here and asking all kinds of amazing questions. You guys asked really good questions. And so, like I said, if you didn't catch it, this video will be put up on, thanks, Carrie. I appreciate that. This video is going to be up on my Facebook page forever and ever, but also I'll get it all fixed up and cut out some of the gobbledygook, like when I had to let my dog out, and I will put it up on YouTube with the rest of my videos. And that channel is A to Z Pediatrics on YouTube. And then we've got our website, which has Dr. McGranahan's podcasts on it and lots of other great information. You can check us out on Instagram. You can check us out on Twitter. Okay, can kids play outside with other kids without a mask? Yes, they can. So playing outside without a mask is a great idea, and I would definitely encourage kids to play outside all the time. So yes, you can swim without a mask. You can play sports without a mask. You can play outside without a mask. But you can't go to I wouldn't take them to the aquarium or a museum or a birthday party or that's inside without a mask. Okay, let's see. Stacy is asking, I had a reaction to the Pfizer vaccine. Should I be worried about my daughter receiving it? Stacy, I don't think so. I don't believe that I know of any data out there that's saying that there is any sort of familial component to vaccine reactions. It is probably just a fluke. That being said, what I might suggest is if you guys are our patients, and I'm not sure if you are or not, maybe just let our staff know, and maybe we'll watch your daughter for the 30 minutes instead of the 15. The other thing you can do, if it makes you feel better, if it was an allergic reaction and it wasn't like just your normal soreness and, you know, that kind of stuff, but it was actually allergic, you could pre-treat your daughter with Benadryl, and that's not going to affect the vaccine at all. So those are some options you could try if it makes you feel better. But certainly call us. I mean, if you have specific questions about your little girl and we're your little girl's doctor, then definitely call. Oh, Stacy, you had a neurologic reaction. God, I am so sorry to hear that. Stacy, I would suggest that if I'm assuming you're saying, yes, we are your daughter's doctors. Why don't you call us tomorrow, and whoever your daughter's pediatrician, and I hope it's not me because I'm gonna feel like a real jerk if it is, because I don't know who she is. But if she is, call me tomorrow. If it's me, call Friday because I'm off tomorrow. But if it's one of my other partners, then just please call. I think we need to talk about your case in a more private situation. Okay. And I'm so sorry to hear that you had a bad reaction to the vaccine. It's very unusual. What else? Do you guys have any other questions? And so, one other thing, this is my last little tidbit, and this is what I've been telling all my patients, that if you are a superhero fan, which I am a superhero fan, my personal favorite is Thor. All you ladies should probably know why. However, if you love the Spider-Man or Superman or whatever, Spider-Man and the Hulk and those guys did not develop their superpowers without pain, right? Like when he turns into the Hulk, it doesn't feel good. And so would we get this vaccine, we're not going to feel good for a few days. And that's okay, because it's totally worth it compared to what we would have to go through if we got COVID. Okay. So we're developing some superpowers that are going to protect us from COVID so we can go out and live our lives. And yes, we have to sacrifice a day, but it is completely worth it. So that's my 2 cents. It's probably like my 20 cents because I think I gave like 18,000 2 cents while we were doing this talk, but that's pretty normal. Thank you for offering this. Gives a big relief. Oh, thank you so much, Alicia. That's awesome. We're so excited. We'll be happy to see you on Friday. That's great. Okay, I think we kind of covered everything. Again, I'm Dr. Jean Wagner with A to Z Pediatrics. I am hopefully going to keep doing these every 2 weeks. I did have one scheduled for tomorrow night, which I am going to cancel. It's about summer stuff like ticks and poison ivy and helmets and sunscreen and like just summer bonanza. But I think I'm going to push it back because 2 nights in a row is probably a lot for me. So, but I'll probably catch that one again, maybe in a week or 2 if you guys are interested. Otherwise, feel free to shoot some comments in here with other topics that you might be interested in me, droning on and on about for days. And I am happy to do so. Otherwise, hopefully everyone gets their vaccine soon. Be safe and have a great rest of your evening. Thanks so much for joining me. Bye, guys.